What is up? Not so pro football talk. Just got off the phone with my parents. Sorry, I'm a little tad bit late. But we're here for fantasy again. So, again, any injuries, any waivers, any trades for you guys who have this last week 11. It's time for trades. I mean, everybody's doing it in our leagues. Everybody's either getting vetoed or some are getting passed. Again, this is the time to make sure you trade the lot. Make sure that you get something that you need to progress through the season and make sure that you win or at least get to the playoffs and go down swinging. So again, what we'll be doing, of course, all the time is we'll answer every single question. And then, of course, I'll get to my quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and if we need to, kickers and defenses. I know that those guys are making a lot of a difference right now. Some of these kickers are getting 15 points on average. Some of these defenses are getting 10 to 15 on average as well. So really, these are going to make and break your fantasy. So any questions that you guys have, go ahead and put them down in the chat below, and we'll go ahead and get everything started. So until a few more comments and people get into the live here, I'm going to go ahead and talk my quarterbacks. So, of course, in majority of leagues, I am still going to talk about the rookies, still going to talk about Drake May. He does have a tough matchup this week, I guess you can say. Again, he did fairly well against Chicago. They did get the dub there, even though it wasn't a pretty dub for him to say. Only 12.76 points. But next week he has the Rams, Miami, and then Indy in the next 3 weeks before his bye week in week 14. So I think this guy is somebody to start within the next 3 weeks. If he's not on a roster in your league, he should be. He's only owned in 25% of leagues, and he's only starting this past week in 9%. So I do believe that he should have some worth there. Even if he is on your bench, he's a great guy to stash because, again, he's been averaging some good points throughout these past few weeks. Of course, against tougher defenses, he does play a little bit down, but that's how it works with rookies. They're still trying to get up there and get up there in the ranks and make sure that their name is known. So, of course, Drake May is going to be that guy for me right now. Other people that you definitely need to have on a roster, which I'm very disappointed in Sleeper. 29% of leagues, Russell Wilson is only owned in that number of leagues. It's super sad to see. He's been doing phenomenally. If he was starting the season off as the starter in week 1, if he didn't have his injury, I do believe he would be at least a top 15 quarterback at this point in time, maybe even a top 10 quarterback the way he's playing. The past 3 weeks with the bye in the middle of them, 24 points and 13 points, which is his low against the Giants, but they really didn't need to do too much in that game. And then, of course, this past week against Washington, booms for 19 points. I really like the way he's playing. He's using his receivers to their best skill set. So Russell Wilson is also a guy who needs to be on a roster in your league. He is somebody who can get you next few weeks. His schedule is not, the best in this next week against Baltimore. But the way that these games are playing, the Steelers are always competitive. I think Russell Wilson really needs to be on a roster this week. I think he will do just fine. Looking around 15 points for him. So it should be a good one in my opinion. So see what you guys got. Alrighty. Oops. I'm in the wrong one there. I think it's this one that I want. There we go. Alrighty. So Russell Wilson there. Also, I'm going to go. I really don't want to do this, but of course, I'm going to go with Jared Goff. I know he had the horrible game this past week. He is owned in 81% of rosters, but he needs to be owned in 100%, in my opinion. He at least needs to be on the bench somewhere. He's a top 15 quarterback at this point in time. He hasn't been doing the best the past few games, but they've been against pretty tough opponents. Green Bay, he had 9 points. In Houston, he had 12 points, even though he had 5 interceptions. So again, I do believe he'll get back to those 18, 25-point games in these next few weeks against Jacksonville, Indy, and then Chicago. I really think that Jared Goff is going to pop off in these next few weeks. So if you need to start him, whether he's on your roster or if you feel like trading for a quarterback and you need somebody more consistent, it's always good to have a guy on a winning team. Again, they do run the ball quite often, but Jared Goff still gets his licks in there, so he will be getting you some points. Other guys that you need, especially in those deep kind of leagues, is probably going to be Bryce Young. So Bryce Young, right now, he's having a little bit of a resurgence. I wouldn't say he's a for sure starter in this league, but he's a guy that gets you points. So if you're on those double flex leagues and those deep leagues like Dynasty, where you have 2 quarterbacks, maybe even 3 quarterbacks, depending on how big your league is, I've seen some crazy stuff out there. He's getting 15, 10, and 12 in the past 3 games. He will be going into a bye this week, which is good for him. But Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, those are going to be his toughest tests. But of course, if you need him in those deep leagues, I think he's a great guy to have with his running ability. He can get out and get loose at times. So again, this is for the deep leagues, but Bryce Young is a guy that should be upcoming, getting on a roster. He's going to start developing with this team, even though this team is very bad. So those are going to be my quarterbacks there. I really don't believe in too many other ones. You could make a case for maybe Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers. But again, I really don't feel like they are the most consistent. And they do have some tough schedules upcoming, and I don't know how they're going to do. So again, Rodgers and the offense are just really shaky in my opinion. I wouldn't want him on my roster. But of course, if you really need him, he's going up against Indy this week. Should be an all right game for him, but for the 40-year-old there, I really don't like him in that situation. So we're going to go on to running backs here. I'm going to go pretty quickly here in the running back area. It's not really looking too good at this point in time. It's going to be a lot of handcuffs like I've been talking about the past few weeks. If there are some people out there for you, of course, pick them up if they're starters. But at this point in time, guys like Ray Davis, who's basically coming off an injury this past week. He didn't have too many touches because of that injury. Other guys I'm going to talk about, of course, are those handcuffs that I've been talking about a few weeks. So again, if you got Jaylen Warren, who is on the thumbnail today, if you got Tyler Algier, if you got Braylon Allen out there, again, in these deeper leagues, these guys need to be on rosters. If they're not, again, I don't know what your leagues are doing. Yes, these guys are getting minuscule points, but if the person in front of them on their respective team gets injured, these guys are the next man up. These guys have not been doing bad as of production purposes. And of course, once they're in there, nice and warmed up, they will be getting the points that you kind of want them to get. So of course, that's what I think there. All those handcuffs should be on a roster. Guys who are probably coming up in the ranks, though, is going to be still for me guys like Roschon Johnson. I know he didn't get a lot of usage this past week, but with what's going to happen with this new offense, they did, let go of Shane Waldron. Again, Seahawks players, fans, everybody in the organization know that Shane Waldron is not the best offensive coordinator. So he was due to be let go pretty soon, especially the way this Bears offense is set up. I mean, they really should have had a lot more points at this point in time. So again, I'm not really sure what's going on in that aspect, but it is what it is. So Shane Waldron is out. I think Roschon Johnson will kind of get a little bit more acclimated into this offense, kind of like how we saw the past 4 or 5 weeks. He had 14 points when his counterpart was injured, which is DeAndre Swift. And of course, Jacksonville, Washington, and Arizona, he was averaging around 5 points a game. So I think Roschon Johnson is a guy to have in those deep leagues. I do believe in this new offense. Whoever is going to be running it should really get some touches there. But other guys like McLaughlin, I've kind of dropped the ball on. I really don't think that these guys are actually going to get you points that you need. Cam Akers is maybe a guy that you could start to trust. He is getting what Roschon Johnson was getting the past few weeks. So he's averaging about 6 points. He has Tennessee coming up. So if Minnesota is leading by a lot, I do think Cam Akers will get in there, get some points for you. So if you need somebody like a desperation pick, the off chance that the Vikings actually do play good and gets the ball running, Cam Akers might get in there. This past game, against Jacksonville, it was a close one, and he got 13 carries. So, again, not the best average there with 2.9 yards per carry, only getting 38 yards. But he's getting in there. So, he's getting points. He's getting used in the passing game, too. He had 1 reception there for 9 yards. So, he's getting in there. I think against Tennessee, Chicago, Arizona in these next 3 weeks, he should be getting used a little bit more in Minnesota. But those are some guys that you could get. I mean, I see some other guys out here, but I'm really not sold on them in their current situation for the running back position. But again, it's just going to be handcuffs, guys. These are the guys to get on your roster if you feel like maybe somebody's looming for an injury. Again, we don't wish those upon anybody here in NSP, but it is what it is. Sometimes it happens late in the game. And of course, going into the playoffs, you really want those handcuffs because if not, you're fighting for them in the waiver wire, as there will be no more trades for mostly everybody past this week 11. So again, if you have any comments, any trades, any injury advice, go ahead and put it down in the comments and I'll answer those questions or just talk football with you. So here, wide receivers. Oh, goodness. There is a plethora of guys out there, wide receiver position. If you're in a 10-man, 12-man league, 14-man league, there should be many options for you. Guys that are averaging 5 points and even booming up to getting like 10 or 15 as the third wide receiver, even the fourth wide receiver. A lot of these offenses are getting more intricate in using these, kind of one trick pony type wide receivers, whether it's a long ball type receiver, whether it's a slot wide receiver. So guys like Juwan Jennings, who really didn't get the start last year. I mean, he played every now and then, but he really wasn't popping off like he was this year. Now he's the third wide receiver, basically, behind Pearsall and Debo. This past week, again, I think he did fairly well. I don't know why it says Seattle there or Dallas. Must be glitching for me. Let me go ahead and get back. There you go, Tampa Bay. So, again, 16.3 points there for Juwan Jennings. Again, 7 receptions, 93 yards. It's pretty good for a third-string wide receiver there, or the wide receiver 3. It's not a third string. But, again, there's going to be other guys out there. Quentin Johnston is kind of making a revival again like he was in the beginning of the season. These past 2 weeks, 22 points, 10 points. He's going against Cincinnati this week. I think right now would be the perfect time to play him. Again, he's doing very well. So, in my opinion, Quentin Johnston should be in a roster. He is only owned in 59% of leagues. So, if he is available for you, he could be a winner for you as he is getting healthy again. So, try to get him on your roster, even if he is a guy that just sits there the entire season. At least you have that backup who can get you 10 to 22 points like he's been showing these past few weeks. And their matchups going into the late season in the playoff times are not bad for the Chargers. So definitely would want him on a roster there. Guys, again, that I just spoke about for the 49ers is going to be Ricky Pearsall. Again, I was highly doubting this guy, but he's showing to be utilized in this offense. So again, it's not insane usage, but he is getting the yards there, the yak yards. Ricky Pearsall, again, the past few weeks, 5 points in his first start, 11 points in his second, and 17 after he got the touchdown here against Tampa Bay. So again, he's finding his own in this offense. He should be on a roster. He's owned in 56% of rosters right now, but he's making a name for himself. And going against Seattle and Green Bay these next few weeks, they're going to need to utilize him, especially in the red zone like they have been using him. I think he is deserving of a roster, even if he is a low flex position or maybe just a bench player for you at this point in time. Right now, you got to use them while they're hot. And the 49ers are finding themselves after Christian McCaffrey's come back. So really scared to see what they do against my Seahawks this past week, or this week, upcoming week. But yeah, so now we'll move on to my next guy. And of course, that's going to be Xavier Legette. I know he didn't have the best week here against the New York Giants, but it is what it is. You can't really fault him for that. So going into this next week, he will be having a bye week, I believe. Might have my weeks mixed up here, but this is week 10. So yeah, going into week 11, he will have that bye week, but he is a guy to stash. The past few weeks, he's gotten, of course, 13 points in week 8, 13 points in week 9, 7 points this past week, but he was on 98% of the offensive snaps. So I do believe that he is a guy to have on a roster here going late into the season. Owned in 55% of leagues, but he's continuing to be the option number one, basically, besides the tight end there and Jatavian Sanders. So again, I think Xavier Legette, Chuba Hubbard, Jatavian Sanders are really some of the guys that are skill players there that should be on rosters in fantasy, especially in those deep leagues. Excuse me. But again, guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them down in the comment section. Really surprised that I haven't gotten any fantasy questions so far, but go ahead and put them down there. I am willing to answer them and give you my best advice. But going on here with a few more wide receivers, I'm looking for my main man from Texas. I really can't see him. Did somebody pick him up actually? Let's go ahead and check. Let us go this way. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to look right now for John Mechie. Again, he did have a great week this week. Such a great story from the kid. Again, went through leukemia, fought leukemia, beat leukemia, and now in his second year, or basically almost his third year, because last year he did play some, but this is his third season basically after being drafted, and he's finally gotten his first touchdown in the NFL. And you love to see it. You love to see him being utilized a little bit more with the injuries that this team has had. Right now, of course, he is classified as the wide receiver 4, but this past week he got 65% of the snaps. So again, that is situational football there. The Texans were going against Detroit, who is a high, caliber offensive team. So again, I think John Mechie should be utilized more going forward. I don't know if he's going to get a touchdown and produce like he has been in this past week, but he does have the opportunity to do it again in this Texas matchup this next week against Dallas. He is projected to get 6.28 points, but last week he was projected to get 4.47, and he got 18.4. So again, if you take the touchdown out of there, it is 12 points in PPR. Still pretty good for a guy who is only owned in 3% of leagues. You might as well snatch him up now. Again, I think John Mechie is going to continue to carve out a role, especially with the next 3 matchups. Again, as I said, this week against Dallas in the Texas Showdown, against Tennessee after that, and Jacksonville after that. So if that isn't the best 3 games to utilize this guy and see what he actually has, tremendous speed, great hands, as we saw this past week, going 5 for 6, 74 yards and a touchdown. I really think John Mechie is going to start being utilized, especially with Nico Collins coming back, nursing that injury that he had. Nico Collins will demand targets. Tank Dell will demand targets. But John Mechie means that he's going to be in the slot when he actually does come in, or in those bunch formations when they go trips or doubles on one side with a tight end, maybe covering up the guard. So again, they're going to use him in formations that they can get him open. Like I said, he has speed, he has great route running ability, and great hands. So again, I think John Mechie, just 24 years of age at this point in time, is going to continue to carve out a name for himself. I really know that the Texans want to get him out there and utilized. And as we've seen the past 2 games, 63% of snaps in game 9, no targets there, but this week against Detroit, did amazing. So get John Mechie, if not just to take him to go get the chip on your fantasy team. Go ahead and do that. I mean, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try to get him in one league and take him to the chip. It's going to be the league that I am 8-1 in. So 9-1 now, actually. The updated record has been changed now. So I'm 9-1, looking to have that first round bye. Going to take John Mechie all the way to the chip, hopefully, and win the championship and get this guy a ring. So, of course, it is just for fantasy, so he really won't get one in real life. But I really just love his story. So, again, that is a guy in those deep, deep leagues. Again, I said only owned in 3% of leagues. Need to get him now. Another guy that I think probably will continue to be, an up and down kind of player, but if you really need him, he's out there. Alec Pierce with the Indianapolis Colts. I know that Josh Downs gets what did they say when they were playing, 50% of the targets from Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco hasn't been playing the best, but they said that he's going to be the starter again. Usually when Joe Flacco and Alec Pierce play, he does get some great receptions and yak yards. This past week, 18 points against Buffalo, going against the New York Jets. I do believe he will be able to be schemed open with the way the Jets defense has been playing. They usually have, again, Sauce Gardner, not the best in my opinion, but usually have him against the number 1 guy. That should be Josh Downs. Josh Downs will definitely get his, but Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce should be getting schemed open a little bit. So again, Alec Pierce usually goes off whenever he's playing with Joe Flacco. So again, we've already seen it 3 or 4 times. He's been playing well. So Alec Pierce is a guy out there only owning 16% of the leagues. He should be getting to get on those deep rosters, in my opinion. But other than that, I mean, if you want to take a deep shot chance on a guy, Marquise Valdez-Scantling, I usually don't like to go off of these guys when they're like kind of like one-hit wonders. But going into Week 11, they're going against Cleveland. I do believe the Saints will continue to try to target him. But again, 3 receptions for 109 yards, which is crazy, a 36-yard average and 2 touchdowns. It is pretty good, but again, be wary. The game before that, he only had 1 reception for 5 yards. So this is a boom or bust type of player. But again, he could be a snipe going into the late season here for the Saints. So again, they are really missing their injured. I cannot remember his name, but again, let me try to look him up. I think it was on this roster. Let me go ahead and check. It might be in Dynasty. No, it's not. Trying to look for it, guys. There is somebody who actually has them on their roster at this point in time. I cannot remember his name. He got hurt. Rashid Shaheed. There you go. Finally came to my mind. Again, that happens a lot where I forget people's names and like it just takes me a minute. But Rashid Shaheed is out. So Marquise Valdez-Scantling is most likely going to reprise that role that Rashid Shaheed had. Really, he is one of those one-trick pony type of guys that I've been talking about. So definitely be wary of that. But again, guys like Van Jefferson have been playing pretty well. Again, Van Jefferson did not have the best game this past week, but he has been utilized here and there. But those are for those deep leagues. If you have any questions about other guys in those deep leagues, I do have some other guys you could pick up. Of course, Tutu Atwell, the Beckham, are those guys that should possibly be there for you. If not, of course, we have guys out there somewhere like Cowing from the San Francisco 49ers. He gets in there sometimes and actually does play a little bit. Of course, guys like Whittington for the LA Rams, he does get in there every now and then. But those are going to be like guys that are way out there who could possibly get in there due to injuries that happened. But we'll move on to tight ends now. This is my favorite place to be. So if you have any questions about tight ends, I know right now is the best time to definitely get those tight ends to stream if you are that type of guy who's been streaming all year long. I'm like that in only 2 leagues. In my other 3 leagues, I have Bowers and McBride switching off. I also had Hawkinson, but I dropped him because I had Ferguson and McBride before him. He did have a great week this week, but I was predicting that he wouldn't have weeks like that very consistently because there's too many mouths to feed there. But we'll see. I could be totally wrong with that. If you have Hawkinson, I would also start him until he shows me otherwise. This past week, he did great. But, of course, guys that need to be really streamed are going to be guys like Jonnu Smith. I think Jatavian Sanders is now a guy to stream. The past 5 weeks, 9 points, 12 points. He had a bad game against Denver where he had 1 point only, but rebounded against New Orleans and New York Giants with 12 and 8.8. So definitely he is a guy who can get you points. He is going to be on a bye week this week, but against Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and Philadelphia, Panthers are going to need something to get rolling. And I think Jatavian Sanders as well as Xavier Legette are going to be guys who are going to do that. Rookies getting some help out there. Basically, it's going to be a class of rookies with Bryce Young, the young guy, leading them. So it is what it is, but I do think those guys are guys to stream for sure. Other tight ends that are probably out there for you. Again, Noah Gray is always a guy to stream. He does get in there on certain packages, not the best points, but in the deep league where you need somebody and you don't believe in some wide receivers, you can totally play those guys. But other than that, I mean, if for some reason, like in my league, Taysom Hill is there, he is a guy to always stream. He's usually either going to get you at least 5 points somehow, because he gets in there, throws a pass, rushes in for a touchdown, something like that, or catches a pass here and there when they randomly put him in some packages. So Taysom Hill is never a bad guy to have. He is listed as a tight end or a quarterback. Again, you don't want to play him at quarterback, but at tight end, definitely for sure to fill in that spot. Another guy that I really want to talk about, and it's only because he is an ex-Seahawks player. No, not Sean Alexander. I'm talking about Will Dissly, Uncle Dis. Again, the past 5 weeks, he's been playing pretty good, higher than expected coming in here to the Chargers. Kind of an old head sitting at 28, even though he kind of looks like he's 35. Again, him and Hayden Hurst are kind of switching in and out, going 50% of the snaps here and there. But here are the stats from Will Dissly. Nothing astronomical, but definitely something, for an ex-Seahawks fan to rave about. But against Denver, 6.6 points, Arizona, 16.1, New Orleans, 9.1, Cleveland, 2.9, and Tennessee, 8 points. So again, 5 weeks there, all of them above 6 except for one. He's going against Cincinnati, who is a weak defense, and then he goes with Baltimore and Atlanta, who are going to be tougher matchups. But in those tougher matchups, Will Dissly has not shied away from contact and getting the passes that he gets. So again, Will Dissly is a guy to play in those deeper leagues as well. But really, you have a plethora of guys, man. I mean, even if you want to trade for somebody, trading for guys who aren't going to break the bank, like maybe Pat Freiermuth, Hunter Henry, I mean, maybe even Dalton Schultz. He's been sneakily playing pretty consistently, nothing in the double digits aspects, but he is out there. If you want to take a chance on a guy who's pretty injury ridden at this point in time, I would go with Dallas Goedert. He's the 20th ranked tight end here, but again, in the majority of the games that he has played, not because of injury, he has been getting double digit points. So again, if you have any trade needs, those are the guys to go ahead and pick up. But if you can possibly, you really want to go for the full type of blockbuster trade, as this is probably the last week for you to trade, go after the guys like Kittle, Kelsey, McBride, Otton, all that good stuff. Those are guys, in my opinion, that should be trade kind of either bait if you want to sell on them and get a great wide receiver or running back, or if you want to trade for those guys and try to snipe them from somebody who has them on the bench somehow. Kind of like me when I have Bowers and McBride. But Rafe says, Herbert, Wilson, or Stafford for quarterback. I think there I'm going to go with Wilson. Herbert is pretty tempting at this point in time. But then again, I really have not kept up with him. I don't have him in any leagues. I tried to get him, but lately he's been playing good. Oh, okay, never mind. He's going against Cincinnati. Dak is out the rest of the season. I think I will go with Herbert here. Against Cincinnati, he should be getting really good points. That Bengals defense did end up getting somebody. I believe they signed a free agent at the cornerback position. Let me double check before I butcher this, because I cannot for the life of me remember. I guess I was wrong. Maybe it hasn't updated, but I know they did get a cornerback there. I just cannot see anybody else. But yeah, so basically, I do think that Herbert going against the Bengals is pretty good. Mr. Magic says rank these three rest of the season PPR: Jonathan Taylor, K9, and Brees. So at this point in time, K9 is going to go with the system of the Seahawks. I really don't think that's going to be too much run. So he's going to be in the third position for me. Next is probably going to be Brees Hall, and then after that is going to be Jonathan Taylor. I know that Taylor has not had the best few games as of lately because of the Colts offense just doing so poorly. But going into these next few weeks, they do have tough matchups. I think they will lean on Jonathan Taylor. But Brees Hall is kind of sneaking in there for me. But I still think I'm going to give the edge to Jonathan Taylor. I do think he is the better running back overall. And Brees Hall and the Jets are also nothing to rave about. But I would love to put K9 second. Again, I just really don't know how this offense for the offense of the Seahawks is going to do. I do think they're going to rely on Geno a lot. And of course, we've seen the woes of our offensive line. They are really not the best. But Kenneth Walker still continues to defy the odds. He's had great games with them. But going into these next few weeks, we have very tough matchups. They're all most likely going to be divisional matchups. San Francisco's next, Arizona. We have the Jets, which we should do fairly well, but then we have Arizona and Green Bay and Minnesota after that. All tough defenses in the backstretch. That is why I think Kenneth Walker is going to have games like he did against Buffalo, where he got 8.5. So those are going to be my rankings there. Mr. Magic says Dobbins or Tracy. I'm trying to have Dobbins. Oh, I'm not trying to have Dobbins any longer as my RB2, especially going into the playoffs. In my opinion, Dobbins is not bad to have. Again, I don't have him in any league, so I'm going to search him up pretty quickly. But this past week, I mean, New Orleans against Cleveland, he had great points. Tennessee, again, he didn't have the best. But he goes against Cincy, Baltimore, Atlanta, and Kansas City. So those are going to be 3 out of the 4 tough matchups. Cincinnati, he might do well. So I don't think he's a bad guy to have. Of course, you always want to upgrade. So if you do want to upgrade to any other guys, you totally can. But I do think he'll continue to be the guy there. It's just depending on how much you value him. I do think people do value him pretty high. I know that AJ on this channel valued him pretty decently, and he actually stole him in the draft in a couple of leagues, especially going out there like in the 9th or 10th round, something like that. So in my opinion, J.K. Dobbins is rostered in 93% of leagues for a reason. Even if you put him at a flex, that's fine, but try to get something out of him. Tracy is also another guy who's like that. He is going to get the bulk of the carries. I know that Singletary is kind of eating into his production here and there just a little bit, but as Singletary gets healthier, I don't think Tyrone Tracy will lose his step. So again, Tyrone Tracy, I think is the better option here rest of the season. They do have a better matchup, in my opinion, the rest of the season. So I would probably go with Tyrone Tracy, if I'm being honest. The only thing that scares me about him is that he does have some fumbling issues now, and we've seen it at least twice in the past 3 or 4 games. So that's something to definitely keep track of. And maybe Singletary will reprise his role if Tracy keeps fumbling the ball. But in my opinion, I think Tracy and Dobbins are good running backs to have. Maybe not your running back 1, but of course you said you're running back 2, so I'm not mad about that. But Liam says, "What's up, bro? How's it going, Liam? How you doing today?" He says, "I'm 6-4 in 3rd place. This is my team. Quarterbacks Baker, Love, Herbert. Not bad. Again, is this a 10-man team or is this a 12-man? Let me know. Wide receivers are CD, McLaurin, and London. Evans is waiting to come back, and he should be coming back in not this week, but next week after the bye, hopefully for you. Running backs are Henry, K9, Aaron Jones, and Brooks. This is not a bad team. He did say that this is a 10-man PPR. But let's see. Tight ends are Bowers and Gesicki. Not bad. What should I do at the deadline? If anything, I would trade CD, my guy. Again, we know that CD can play well with Cooper Rush, but I'm not going to bet on him getting back to, those 20-point games with Cooper Rush or with Trey Lance. We've already seen him have struggles with Dak Prescott this year. I don't think the downgrading quarterback is going to help him all that much. And I know he's the number 5 wide receiver in the league, number 23 overall, but he is boosted by that 39-point game. That is what's really keeping him up there. But going forward, I don't think, again, even against the easiest of matchups, CeeDee Lamb is going to be good. So again, I would trade him. Trade him for somebody much better. I mean, you can get a punch back, to be honest. I think your running back room is great. You could probably upgrade from K9, maybe going to a guy like Mixon or something like that. I know I've been talking about Mixon a lot this year. If you can possibly even go tick for tack, maybe Bijan Robinson for CeeDee Lamb. Again, Bijan has been going nuclear at this point in time. I wouldn't even be mad with you going maybe Saquon Barkley, Mixon, of course, maybe even Kyron Williams, who's been pretty consistent as well. Nothing insane for Kyron, but again, you could always double dip there, try to get some guys that you need. But McLaurin and London, I would love for you to hang on to. Those guys are great. Evans, I would hang on to also. So once he comes back, he is the number one wide receiver there, undisputed. So that's just my opinion there. You probably want to upgrade in the running back room because Baker and Herbert are doing great right now. And then Love should get back to form once it gets into the December month. Again, in those colder months, Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers play well. Mr. Magic also says Aaron Jones or Jacobs rest of the season. Aaron Jones is kind of getting a little bit injured at this point in time. So I don't really like that. That's the only thing that kind of wants me to not say that I'm going to get him the rest of the season. They've kind of been getting away from using him. Again, he still gets the carries, but his yards per carry isn't the best. So I think I'm going to go with Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, again, on the Green Bay Packers, has been doing fairly well. Again, you probably want him to do better, but I think rest of the season with their schedules, I think he will be utilized a lot more. I know Aaron Jones is kind of ranked higher than him, but that's because in the beginning of the season, Aaron Jones was going nuclear with the way the Vikings were winning all these games, really utilizing him a lot, especially in the pass game. Now they've kind of gotten away with that. Again, he still gets the pass game in there. He still gets the rushes that he has been consistently getting, but it looks like he's slowing down a little bit, and injuries are starting to get at him. Right now, it should be a rib for him, but how long is it going to take for him to get back to those pesky hamstring injuries? Josh Jacobs, of course, is also an injury-riddled kind of running back, but at this point in time, he's playing a lot better on less touches. His yards per carry have just increased throughout the season. Again, he's had his best 3 performances, in my opinion, in the past 3 weeks. So again, I think I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs here, even with the little amount of usage that he's getting with the Green Bay Packers. He is capitalized on it. So again, the Green Bay Packers are going to continue to get better, and I think Josh Jacobs will be the beneficiary of that. Mr. Magic also says, Downs or Tillman rest of the season? This is a good question to have. I think with the quarterback inconsistency that we're going to see for the Colts here with either Richardson or, of course, with Flacco, I think I'm going to really go with Tillman. Tillman I have on one of my rosters. I really do like the kid. I mean, he's doing insane right now. Let me see if I can get him right there. There you go. This past 3 weeks, he's really gone off. 24 years of age. He only has this is his second season in the league. And right now he's going 18, 28, and 19 in the past 3 games. And his best game came against a really good defense against Baltimore. That was when they actually sniped that game away from Baltimore there. It was a great game to watch. But as you've seen, his yards per game or his points per game projected have gone up all pretty much to double digits after these amazing stretch of games. So in my opinion, I think that Cedric Tillman is the number 1 wide receiver there for the Browns at this point in time. He is listed as the number 3 guy, but he's doing better than Jerry Jeudy. He's doing better than Elijah Moore. He's doing better than Cedric, that is him, Cedric Tillman. He's doing better than Jamari Thrash and the other guy, Jalen Darden. So again, I think right now Cedric Tillman is the best wide receiver there for the Browns. He is the most consistent option. He's averaging 10 attempts thrown at him. So he's getting 8, 7, and 6 receptions in these past 3 games. Pretty dang good for a guy who's coming off the bench, basically. So he's benefiting off of this. I think he'll continue to do that against New Orleans. Pittsburgh might be his tough game. Again, Denver might be another tough game, and back-to-back again, Pittsburgh again. So he does have a tough schedule, in my opinion, but the way that he played against Baltimore and the Los Angeles Chargers, who is another tough defense, I think he'll do just fine. Again, he's just playing well. So I'm going to go with Tillman rest of the season. Liam also says, if I were to package CD and K9 for Bijan, who else should I ask for? His team is Tay, Jettas, Achan, Swift, Tracy, Jr., D. Smith, and Bucky. So those are the other players I could package and do a 2-for-2. So, I mean, if you're going to trade away CD and K9 to get Bijan and somebody else, I think I would want you to get a wide receiver. So I wouldn't mind you getting Devontae Smith, to be honest. I think that's something that he would go for, especially if he is getting CeeDee Lamb. He might think, oh, CeeDee Lamb is way better than Devontae Smith. And hopefully he's not been able to watch any Cowboys games or anything like that, or really hear the news. But Devontae Smith also had a horrible game against Dallas. Even though they got the humongous dub against them, he was not utilized. But going against Washington, the Rams, Baltimore, Carolina, Pittsburgh as the rest of his season, going into the playoffs there, I do think that he's going to get back to his form where he's at least getting around 15 points. I think it's going to be way more consistent than CD. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going Devontae Smith. I would send that in a heartbeat, and hopefully he accepts it. Let's see. Magic says trade Devontae Smith, Downs, and Jones for DK and Breece Hall. Again, right now, I just talked about Devontae Smith. He's very consistent, and I think he's the best wide receiver 2 in the league at this point in time. Again, it's just when Jalen Hurts gets sent the dang ball. Downs, I would love to get rid of because he's going to be super inconsistent, and I hate that. I hate inconsistency in my fantasy team. That's the main reason I do trades, is because the guys are not consistent, and I just hate it. So again, I'm okay with you trading Downs. I'm okay with you trading Jones because I think he is going to regress this last few weeks going into the playoffs, just because the Vikings are regressing in their entirety of a team. So again, Reed called it. The Vikings are not as good as we think, and right now they're showing it. So getting DK and Breece. Here's my only knock on DK. Again, coming off the injury, I do think he's going to do well, but how well? How consistent is he going to be? As we've seen in the past weeks before he was injured, again, I'm going to go back 6 weeks. So this is his 6 weeks that he had been healthy. These are the points: 28, 20, and 15. Then it went down to 7, 7.8, and then back up to 19 before his injury. So again, he can play very good at this point in time. But going against San Francisco, who we had a 7-point game against, going against Arizona, who we have not played yet, but should be a tough matchup, going against the Jets, Arizona again, Green Bay, Minnesota. Really, that's the only thing that I really don't like about that. Breece Hall, I'm totally fine with you doing that. But again, also, I've talked to you about the woes of the Jets. These past 3 games, 9 points, 10 points, 12 points. I don't think it's going to get any better because those were against teams who are not the best against the run. So again, he does have an easier matchup going to the rest of the season. But how are the Jets actually going to play? Their morale is super down. The building there is just insanely quiet. I don't really hear anything from there, so I don't know if they're actually working hard to get better or if they're just giving up on the season. So again, I think there are better players to get. Again, I'm not knocking on DK. I think DK is great. He just can be a roller coaster of a player. So again, he'll get you 7 points one week, maybe 7 the next week, and then go off for like 28. But really, you want that consistency going into the playoffs. You don't want a guy to kind of jiff you of a playoff win because he decided to get 7 points that game. So try to get guys that are consistent. I think Devontae Smith is consistent. I think Aaron Jones is consistent. Even though they aren't getting you the astronomical points that DK Metcalf could or Breece Hall could, it's just better to know you're going to get those secure points. Pareko, what's up, my guy? Glad to have you back here on Fantasy Football Q&A. Excuse me. So he says, I'm 3-7, first in points against. Oh my gosh, that sucks. He says, in 6th place in a 12-man league. You're 5-5, which is not bad. Oh, are you going against? Okay, I got confused here. 3-7 and I'm 3-7, first in points against, and 6th place in a 12-man league. Oh, so I'm guessing these are maybe different leagues. So he says, do I still have a chance with 4 games left? My Superflex quarterbacks are. Oh, you're saying 6th place is 5-5, so you're 2 games behind. There you go. My bad. My brain is going off. And not in the right way. He says, my 2 Superflex quarterbacks are Lamar and Daniels, but both have a week 14 bye along with Derrick Henry. Oh, my goodness. He says, I'm about 35 points less scored than the 6th place right now also. So you are putting up points. But really, that week 14 hurts you so much. And that's just super, super bad. So again, maybe it's time to trade them. I mean, they're doing great for you. Maybe you can trade Lamar Jackson and try to get 2 quarterbacks from that. Maybe look for a team who has two great quarterbacks or two like decent quarterbacks that are getting like 20 points a game, maybe even 15 to 18 points a game, and trade Lamar Jackson and try your best, your absolute best, to get those two quarterbacks from him just for Lamar Jackson. Maybe you can throw in a random player in there just to entice him to go for like a 2-for-2. But Lamar Jackson is a great guy to have, and so is, Jaden Daniels is awesome. So, in my opinion, I just don't know if you're going to win these next like 3 weeks, week 11, 12, and 13, so that you're comfortable with, not even having quarterbacks to play in week 14. So again, that's what I think is going to be the best option for you. But let's see. He says, only good thing is week 13 is the last place person, and week 14 is the second to last place person. So again, you might be able to just get by with anybody who is a quarterback on the waiver wire. And I don't know who's on your waiver wire. Maybe if you want to send me a picture in the Discord, I can help you better with that. But as of right now, if you want to trade somebody, you can. But I would want you to run with Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. Again, it's going to be tough in that week 14 there for you. So send it in the Discord if you can. If not, write it out here in the comment section. Really appreciate your comments, man. That's some sticky situations that you got to be in there. KJ Frederick says, better tight end, full PPR play this week, Taysom Hill or Dawson Knox. I'm going to go Taysom Hill, my guy. Dawson Knox has not been impressing this entire season, so there gives me no indication that he's going to pop off against Kansas City. So in my opinion, I'm going with the guy who is really not even a true tight end, but Taysom Hill has been getting good points. I know this past week he got like 6, I think 7, and he's going against Cleveland, so he should be doing well. Right now, the New Orleans Saints, played a great game against Atlanta. So in the win, I think he does well, but again, in losses is when he really plays his best. So that's who I'm going to go with. Taysom Hill. He's just a better option, in my opinion, more consistent and scoring more points overall. Let's see, he's the number 30 tight end, and Dawson Knox is the number 43 tight end. And Taysom Hill hasn't even played in 4 games this year. Dawson Knox has played in every single one. So there's your answer there, clear cut and ready to go. Let's see. So start one. CD, Downs, Tillman, and Terry McLaurin versus Philadelphia. Is there a way that you don't have to start, or is there a way you can start 2 of them? That's pretty insane if you're just going to pick one. I'm not going to start CD. Again, this past week, he showed us with Cooper Rush or Trey Lance, they really can't get anything going to him. So I'm not going to start CD. I'm not going to start Downs, even though he has the possibility of going off. Again, right now with Flacco, who is the projected starter as of what their coach said, he's doing middle of the pack, right? You want him to get back to those 20-point games, those 19-point games like he was getting earlier in the season. But 12 and 14 is good, as he does get a lot of targets. But against the Jets, he is going against Sauce Gardner, who isn't the best, but he does draw a lot of penalties. So Josh Downs may not even get those yards because the penalties are going to throw him back. Again, I could be totally wrong there, but Josh Downs, I probably will not start. I think I'm going to go with Tillman or McLaurin. Let me go ahead and search up McLaurin here. I have not been seeing the way he's been doing, but I know I shouldn't even sweat. He's number 7 wide receiver. 17, 15, 16. So I think he's more consistent in my opinion. Going against Philly is a tough ask with how their defense is played. But hear me out, my guy. Every time that Terry McLaurin has played it up against a tough defense, whether you consider Arizona to be a tough defense, whether you consider Baltimore to be a tough defense, whether you consider Chicago or Pittsburgh to be a tough defense, Terry McLaurin has scored 16 points or more in every single one, and even in some of those against Baltimore, he scored 23. So again, I'm not scared with Terry McLaurin. I wouldn't even knock you if you did Cedric Tillman to go against New Orleans Saints. Again, he is also popping off. He's probably the most consistent boom guy at this point in time. He's getting just about the same targets as McLaurin, just about the same targets as Downs, and he's producing more. So I think I'm going to go with McLaurin or Tillman. I say you flip a coin there. In my opinion, I would probably go with McLaurin as the safe bet, Tillman as the guy who is your bust type of guy. Again, he could show off again, 18, 28, and 19 the past 3 games. New Orleans is not a good defense. So again, I think Tillman should go off. So again, McLaurin or Tillman. KJ says, thank you. I know Kincaid has been getting 27% of the target share in Buffalo and might be out, but I'm going to rock out with Hill. Awesome, man. I honestly think that's the best bet for you. Again, try to check the waiver wires to see who else is there. If you are in our Discord, send me a screenshot of the tight ends out there, and I will answer your question as quickly as possible, whether it be on live here or later on when I just answer it whenever I get to it. So let me see if Pareko has sent anything. No, he has not. But yeah, so if you are in a Discord, go ahead and send me stuff there. If you're not, go down into the link down here, get into the Discord. I'll answer your question as quickly as possible. And if I don't, AJ or Reed will. Mr. Magic says, where do you rank D-Hop the rest of the season? D-Hop is a special breed, my guy. DeAndre Hopkins has been astronomically probably the best player long term. So again, rest of the season, if I were to rank him based on every single wide receiver, I think he's somewhere around 20 to 25 for me. I know his wide receiver rank right now is 51, but then again, you got to understand that he was with Tennessee, and Tennessee was total duty. Sorry, Rave, if you're still here or you just joined back again. But that's what I'm going to say. He's around the 2025 wide receiver for me. I think he'll be getting consistent points. His floor is probably about 10 for the rest of the season. I think he will continue to be utilized, but I don't think every single game he's going to get a touchdown or even targets in the red zone. DeAndre Hopkins is a move the sticks type of guy. You need a guy on third down. You need a guy on second down and long. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be your guy to secure a catch for sure, to make it an easier third down or secure the first down on third down. So DeAndre Hopkins is a stick mover. I think he's lost his ability to be that red zone type of guy. But again, we saw him against Tampa Bay go off for 2 touchdowns. I just don't think that's going to be the norm. So again, I do think there are 20 to 24 players better than him at this point in time that going into the rest of the season. But that's where he would kind of fall for me here. It's hard to do it off the top of my head, like, oh, this guy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But in a range or average, it's going to be 20 to 25 for me. So I think he's going to be great the rest of the season on the Chiefs. Perico says, trade deadline is this week and waivers run in the morning. But best quarterbacks available right now are Levis, Minshew, and Rush. Disgusting. Yeah, that is disgusting, my guy. So yeah, I think honestly you have to just go with the guys that you have. You can trade, and I know since it's a super flex, maybe even some teams have like 3 quarterbacks. Maybe some just carry the 2. I think you just run with the guys you have. You pray and you hope that the rest of your roster is just phenomenal and you go ahead and win, especially in those last 2 weeks in week 13 and 14. Even if you don't have any quarterbacks, I would say I'm gonna look up every single guy. I want to see what Will Levis's schedule is like in week 14. I want to see what Minshew's schedule is like in week 14. And I'm going to look at Cooper Rush, if he even is starting in week 14. So Cooper Rush in week 14 has Cincinnati. That is probably a good game for him. Minshew has Tampa Bay. That's probably going to be a tough game for him, in my opinion. Again, he hasn't been doing the best. Will Levis, if he even is playing, that is the key term there. If he even is playing, will be going against Jacksonville. So again, it's not looking good. I think the best guy out there, if he even is starting by that time, it could be Trey Lance. And again, I don't know how much I believe in Trey Lance. But Cooper Rush probably has the best matchup on paper. And again, Cooper Rush doesn't even have a projected score for Cincinnati. I don't know if that's purposely because they know that he might not even start that far in the season. Maybe it'll be Trey Lance at the point in time. But yeah, it's tough pickings, man. Again, he says I'll get. Yeah, again, it just depends on who you're going to get if you want to trade anybody. I would want you to keep Lamar Jackson. I think maybe Jaden Daniels is a trade candidate, maybe for some low-ranking quarterbacks that may be on the team who has 3 or 4 quarterbacks somehow. Maybe doing that could possibly benefit you. But yeah, Lamar Jackson's going to continue to go off. Frizzle says, yo, what up? What up? How's it going, man? Thanks for being so active in the Discord. I really love it, especially when I can't get to it because for some reason I have my old email from like one of my previous colleges that I went to as my, again, really stupid of me, putting that email as my main email for Discord. And now I cannot change anything because I don't have access to that email. So I can't get on my phone. So it's always when I get to my computer after a long day of being out doing work and stuff like that. So again, I try to get to the comments as quickly as possible, but you definitely help, my guy. You help answer the questions. I feel like we have a very similar look out on how fantasy should be played in our opinions. Perico says, I'll get Evans back next week and have Ryan Thomas Jr. and Neighbors. So one of them could be my super flex spot and just use Dowdle as my second running back behind Chase Brown and just grab the best quarterback for week 14, unfortunately. Yeah, man. I mean, that's just, it might be how it just has to shake out. I would also say you could try to trade Dowdle somehow. Again, I don't know your entire roster. I don't think you put the entire roster earlier either. But again, there's ways that you can get another quarterback. That's actually pretty good. So again, try to look for a needy team, scour your entire fantasy league, and see who needs maybe another good running back, mid-tier running back, a mid-tier wide receiver. Because having Brian Thomas Jr., Neighbors, and Evans is awesome. So I definitely think that it could work out in your favor. But yeah, just try to trade if you need to. But again, if you like your team the way it is, keep it. Again, this is ultimately your decision. I can only add advice as much as I can with the information that I have. Tony Nelson, he says, for the context for my question, it's a 3-star wide receiver league, and I have DK and Puka. Oh, okay. DK and Puka. And that's why he says up here, start 1 CD Downs, Tillman, or Terry McLaurin. Yeah, those are my safe bet, guys. I mean, I do like DK and Puka a lot. Hopefully DK can actually resurge for you because, again, I'm hoping on it too. I have him in 4 out of my 5 leagues, almost all 5. But again, the last guy just does not want to trade him to me, and it's understandable because I like DK. But yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. Take my advice how you like it. That's awesome. But Pickens rest of the season. Pickens is a great ad. Again, I just hope that he doesn't get thrown out of any games with the way his attitude problems are. Again, for some reason, he just doesn't get called on stuff that DK usually gets called on. Maybe it's because Pickens is only 200 pounds and DK is about maybe like 235, 240. That could be a reason. But Pickens is great, my guy. I think rest of the season, if I were to rank him, I think he'd be just above DeAndre Hopkins in that area. I'm going to go 15 to 20 rest of the season with the way that Russell Wilson's playing. So again, this is only if Russell Wilson is the quarterback and Justin Fields miraculously doesn't get in there because of injury or because of poor play, which I don't think Russell Wilson will have. But these past 3 weeks, man, with Russell Wilson, 22 points, 11 points on his down week against the Giants, who they really didn't need to use him too much, but he had some great pass catches there, as he usually does. And then 20.5 against Washington. His next 3 matchups are Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati. Week 12 and 13 against Cleveland, Cincinnati, he should go off. So yeah, I'm going to have him in there. Like 15 is his like high for me as of rank, and then 20 is his low. So he falls in there in that 5 category, like 5 player category. He's good, man. I think he could average like 16 to 18 points the rest of the schedule that he has. There are some tough matchups in there, especially getting into the championship round when he plays Kansas City. So if you do make it, hopefully you do. Pickens is very good. He says, bunch of wide receivers. I want to try and trade some of my depth for Pickens. I'm not going to lie. I think that's a good idea. Let me go back to see exactly what you said. So CD, Downs, Tillman. Dude, if honestly, I wouldn't even knock you if you tried this. If you want to get rid of Downs, I would see if you could try to get George Pickens. And I wouldn't knock you if you tried CD for Pickens and maybe like a low tier guy, if you just want to have like a 1-for-2 type thing. But CD for George Pickens, the way the season is going, Dak is out. CD's already had a bunch of trouble. So I wouldn't mind you getting Pickens at all, especially with the rest of the schedule and the way that he's played against even tough defenses. So he played against the Jets and he played against the Giants and Washington. The Jets was probably the best defense there in that 3-game stretch. But then again, Baltimore will be his biggest test. So we'll see what happens. But I definitely wouldn't knock you to try that. Brazil says, I'm playing against Lamar this week. Yep, I already don't count yourself out yet, my guy. Again, anything is possible. We've seen guys go off miraculously, so you can't always call it right before the game. It may look hard to beat some of these guys who have stacked rosters, but it's very doable. We've seen it many times in fantasy. We've seen it many times in the NFL. A lot of these top teams and all these top players sometimes just have the worst game all collectively together. And even though you have one of the best rosters, like in one of my leagues, I have AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, and somehow there was 1 week where they all scored less than 20 points for me combined. And I was pissed. So again, it could happen. Lamar Jackson could have the worst game against the Steelers. He could get sacked so many times by TJ Watt, as well as who else? There's a guy on the opposite side of him. His name is eluding me at this point in time. Let me see if I can get it. Cameron Hayward. I mean, they have a plethora of guys. Alex Highsmith is the guy that I was looking for. So again, they could wreak havoc on Lamar Jackson. He could have one of the worst games of his career, more realistically, maybe of the season, because he has had some great games, but he hasn't played against a divisional rival like the Steelers. Again, this is basically for the division. So whoever comes on top with these divisional games is most likely going to win that division. So it should be very, very interesting. So again, don't knock yourself out now. Frizzle says, Murray on bye. Not sure if I should start May or Winston. Honestly, I think I'm going to start Winston. He's going against New Orleans. It's going to be an easy game for him. Drake May does have a tougher matchup. So again, it's not that much tougher, but it's against the Rams. We saw them actually do something against Tua this past week on Monday Night Football. That defense looked really good. So maybe they are back. Maybe they finally got it under control. So the Rams may have something to say to May. So it's gonna be May. I love that little rhyme and video thing. So again, I think Winston is the better play here. Again, he hasn't been a guy that I've really talked about, but he's been doing fairly well. Besides this past game, I know this is only 2 games into his 2024-2025 season, but 23 in the first game against Baltimore. So that one is something good to look at. And then the LA Chargers, he had 13 points, which wasn't his best game. 3 interceptions there, but I don't think New Orleans will do that to him. So I'm going to go with him to probably have about 17 to maybe his high would be like 21, 22 points in this game. So yeah, that's what I think there. Hopefully that helps you. Mr. Magic says rank 3 rest of the season: London, Debo, Wilson. This one is tough. Again, I don't have any of these players. I did not believe in them in the beginning of the season. London has proven me wrong. I mean, he's been playing great. Debo, again, I'm going to be biased here. Debo can be good, but again, we also see games like the past 2 games where he only gets 12 points. So again, I don't think he's the most effective player like everybody was hoping he would be this year. The number 35 ranked wide receiver, and he's only missed basically 2 games. So not the best from a guy who's supposed to be the number one guy there. Even when Ayuk was there, he hasn't had the best stats. But going against Seattle, when he did play against Seattle, he had that big run for about like 70 yards or 60 yards that really propped up his stats there. I don't think that will happen coming into this next game. Hopefully, fingers crossed, as I am a Seahawks fan. So we'll see. But I don't think Debo the rest of the season is going to be good. He has a tough schedule. Of course, Seattle might be his easiest game out of this next stretch. But Green Bay, Buffalo, Chicago, the Rams, Miami, Detroit, after that, going all the way through the playoff schedule for fantasy, tough. So that's why I'm going to put Debo probably last. Wilson, in my opinion, has an easier schedule, but again, it just depends on Rodgers. We've seen him have great games, like that 30-point game that he had just 2 weeks ago. But they have a way easier schedule. Indianapolis, the bye week, which should get them much needed rest. Then they go against Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, Rams, and Buffalo. And based off strength of schedule and that he is basically the number 3 wide receiver in the league at this point in time for fantasy, I'm going to go with him most likely first. Then I'm going to go Drake London second. But in my opinion, Garrett Wilson is that up and down type of guy. This past week, he got 9 points. Week before that, 30. Week before that, 16. So again, it's a little bit inconsistent there, but he still is getting the quality points and touches every single game. So that's why I have him first. Then it's going to be followed by Drake London, who again can also be that up and down kind of player. And I don't like the rest of the season for him too much. He does have some tough matchups coming up against Denver, then the bye week, the Chargers, and Minnesota. But getting into those playoff schedules is why I have him ranked second. It's because he has Las Vegas, the New York Giants, and Washington, which should be a plethora of points for you getting into the playoff season. Dizzle says, Vince, I'm an hour into this gummy. I'm in pillow world. Jeez, man. Are you getting addicted, Dizzle? Have you gone from betting all your money to now spending it on these gummies? Let me know if you need help, my guy. I'm always here for you. It's all love. But Dizzle says, Pats might F around and sneak into the play. You definitely are in pillow world right now, man. I don't know if the Pats can do that. That division is way too good. The AFC has some really good records. I don't think the Pats will sneak into the playoffs unless that's the name of one of your fantasy teams. That's the only way they make it to the playoffs. He says Wilson is a top 5 wide receiver. Vince, stop hating. I wasn't hating. I just ranked him the number 1 rest of the season out of those 3 guys. So again, let me cook, my guy. Let me cook. But yeah, Wilson is very good. So it just depends on Rodgers. That's the only thing that sucks. Brazil says, looks like I'm stuck with Devontae Smith and Flowers as my wide receivers rest of the season. He says half my league don't want them and the other half don't respond to messages. I hate that, bro. I've been trying to get rid of Flowers for the longest time. I know he's like basically ranked like as a top 10 wide receiver. Let me make sure. I know the last time I saw him, he was ranked 3 or 5, I believe. Now he's ranked 9th after this horrible game, 7-point game. That's the only thing I hate about him. He is one of those receivers that is up and down, mostly up. He has 2 good games and he has 1 horrible game. Then he has 2 good games and then another horrible game. So again, that's what I'm riding on. So hopefully against Pittsburgh and the Chargers, he has good games. And then I'm going to sit him against Philly. That seems to be, how it goes for him. But then again, back in week 3 and 4, he had 2 horrible games back to back. So he could have a horrible game against Pittsburgh. But he's not a bad guy to run with. I mean, the number 9 ranked receiver, again, it's just hard to tell when he's not going to have a good game. So that's the only thing I don't like about him. Devontae Smith just has a couple of bad games. I think only 2 bad games this whole year, and the rest are great. So I like Devontae Smith more than I do Zay Flowers as a consistency aspect. Let's see. Mr. Magic says, tell me who I can package to get an upgrade at whatever position. It's a start, 8 league, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, wide receiver, tight end, and 2 flex. So my team is Jaden Daniels, CMC, Kamara. Obviously, CMC and Kamara need to be started rest of the season. JD, of course, Jaden Daniels has to be started too. It seems like he's your only quarterback. So again, that's 3 starters already. So you have 5 left. running backs are basically taken up. Jones, Cup, Jacobs, Evans, D-Hop, Tillman, Downs, Smith, and Hawkinson. So obviously Hawkinson looks like he's your only tight end, so that's going to be the tight end that you're going to run with. I really like him. I'm sad that I had to drop him in one league because, of course, I needed to bring in Nico Collins. I respect Nico Collins more than I do Hawkinson. So hopefully he continues to get you those 15 points a game. That'd be very helpful in your league. The other 4, which is going to be 2 wide receivers and the 2 flex spots. I think I'm going to go at least for this week. I don't know if I can tell you rest of the season, but I know you want to trade some guys. So this is what I'm going to do as of this is your best roster to play the rest of the season. And then the other guys are who you can sell on. So again, I'm giving respect to Tillman. Tillman is going to be a guy in either your second wide receiver spot or your first flex spot. So again, I already have JD, CMC, Kamara, Tillman, and Hawkinson. Next, I'm going to put Devontae Smith in your next flex spot, whether you have Tillman there in your first one, or if not, this is Smith in one of those flex spots. So again, 2 of those guys that are very consistent, and I like them until they show me otherwise. I know Smith just had a bad game, but as you see his other games, he always rebounds and has great games. After that, I'm going to go with Cup and Evans as your wide receiver 1 and 2, depending on where you put Tillman at. So that leaves, of course, Jones, Jacobs, and Downs. I think those are great candidates to be traded away. CMC and Kamara are great to have. Of course, you can always keep one of the running backs that I just talked about, Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones. Keep one of them as your backup guy just in case something miraculously happens. Again, I knock on wood for you. Hopefully none of those guys get hurt. But definitely package up, Jones and D-Hop. Send them away. Keep Jacobs. You have a plethora of wide receivers. Downs is also a guy in there that I did not put in your lineup, but I think Downs should be a guy that you should keep. So I'm going to say D-Hop and Jacobs or D-Hop and Jones. Try to get an elite guy as much as you can. Try to get in maybe even another quarterback, possibly, since Jaden Daniels has a week 14 bye. So you definitely want to play for that. But yeah, that's who I think you should package. Again, I don't know who you can get, but basically you can get any top running back, any top wide receiver. If I were to say one running back and one wide receiver I would try to target, it would definitely be Mixon. Mixon is going to be great rest of the season, in my opinion, even though his matchups get tougher. He's just a dog. So as long as he can stay healthy, I'm knocking on wood for you, I think he's a great guy to have that could definitely fit into one of your flex spots if you feel like he's better than Tillman or Smith. Wide receiver, I think if I were to go for anybody here, I'm not going to say anybody like Jamar Chase, but I might go after maybe a guy like Jay Jettis. I know that he didn't have the best game, so I think right now, going into the rest of the season, some people might be worrying about him. Maybe Jay Jettis is a guy to get. Of course, we've already talked about Pickens. Of course, we've already talked about DK Metcalf. But there's problems with those guys. I feel like with Jay Jettis, I think he's just very consistent. So I would try to get him. He just had one bad game, but if you look at the rest of his games, all of them are spectacular. So hopefully this could sway some people, and maybe you can get him. Again, the number 2 wide receiver right now in the NFL as a fantasy purposes. So those are 2 top guys that I would try to go after. Again, you can dwindle down from there, but try to make as many trade possibilities as you can and send them people's way until somebody hits, somebody answers, and you get something back. It says Otten is on a bye. Oh, so you also have Otten. Okay. Still not sure if I should start Ferg or Gesicki. I would stray away from Ferguson, to be honest. Again, it's just the fact that Dak Prescott's not there. Dak Prescott was really relying on this guy majority of the time. So again, I think I'm going to go with Gesicki. I know he did not have the best game this past week, but against the Chargers, I think he can rebound. He did play a lot of snap percentage this game, 71%. He is the number 11 tight end, so I think you are good to play him. But yeah, it says planning on dropping one of them to pick up Audric Estime so I can really wait to see if Higgins is going to play or not. Yeah, that's totally fine. I think picking up a guy like that at the running back position is a great guy to have. He could end up really going off, even though he really didn't this past week. But he very well could. Let's see. So let's get to Dizzle here. I'm going to read these comments before I put him up because Dizzle can get crazy sometimes. It says, is Bucky Irving running back 1 for Tampa Bay? I would say he's the number 1 running back. Again, in the pass game, that is totally going to be Rachaad White. But yeah, in the run game, Bucky Irving is running back 1, and it seems like Rachaad White is running back / wide receiver 1. As we've seen Rachaad White go off just as well as Bucky Irving has, I think it's majority of the time just because he is playing great as the pass catching back. And in many situations, we've seen the Buccaneers pass heavy, and we've also seen them run heavy. So usually it's determined on who's in there. If Bucky Irving is in there, most likely a run. If Rachaad White is in there, most likely a catching down. So that's what I'll say there. But both those running backs are doing great. They should be on rosters, both of them. I wouldn't even mind if you had both and started both because they're doing great in the tandem together. They really are utilizing them with the injuries that they have. But once Evans is back, maybe Rachaad White does take a step back. It says, OMG, it's hard to type. It says, no, I'm not addicted, Vince. Of course, Dizzle, of course. I just want to throw it out there. You know, I'm here for you, my guy. It says, Laporta or Kraft rest of the season. I think I'm going to go back on this one. Laporta has been doing well. So, again, he might be swaying me. He might be swaying me to come back to him. But, again, he's not very consistent, but neither is Kraft. I know this past game before the bye week, Kraft did not have the best game, but he is just very good. The only thing that scares me is the next 4 matchups for him are against Chicago, San Francisco, Miami, and Detroit. I won't count Seattle in there because we suck against tight ends. So hopefully that'll change by that time, as it is like 5 weeks away. But the Green Bay Packers and Tucker Kraft are good. I think I'm going to go with them, even though they have a tough matchup pretty much the rest of the season, just because they play great in December. I'm going to take Reed's, his advice for that. They do play great, and I think Tucker Kraft is going to be utilized because I really haven't seen many wide receivers there in Green Bay be utilized as much as Kraft. Laporta has a great, decent schedule, but he's just like this. 1 good game, 1 bad game. 1 good game, 1 bad game. 1 good game, 1 bad game. And he's keeping that trend for the past 5 weeks. Again, back in week 6, 12 points. Week 7, 3 points. Week 8, 16 points. Week 9, 4 points. And this past week, in week 10, before they faced up against Jacksonville, he had 15 points. So it looks like Jacksonville, he's going to be trending down to have a bad game. He hasn't really shown me too much, especially the way he's day-to-day with that injury that he got. So shoulders are pesky, and I think Laporta will be affected by that. So I'm going to go Kraft with the rest of the season, even though both of these guys aren't as consistent as maybe I would want them to be, like Bowers or McBride. But that's just me being spoiled. Magic says, thank you for the substantial input. For sure, my guy. I appreciate you coming in here. So thank you for your comments, and thank you for trusting in us to give you great fantasy advice. We really are humbled by that. Big Money Joe says, what's up, Vince? What's up, my guy? Hey, did you like that crazy stuff with Kyrie earlier in the chat for the Gold League? Super funny. But Arturo Flores, what's up, my guy? He says, should I trade Jay Jettas? You can, but you better get something substantial for it because he's the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy at this point in time, according to Sleeper. So if you're going to trade the number 2 wide receiver, you better be going after the number 1 wide receiver or the number 1 running back or the number 1 tight end and a tandem of a great running back and a wide receiver in there, because I would keep JJ. The only reason I'm telling other people to trade for JJ is because he had a bad game this past week. But he's going to rebound. He's had double-digit points, a majority of them 15 to 25 points every single game. So that is a great guy to have, and that's why he's a wide receiver too. So keep him, in my opinion, unless you need substantial help where the rest of your roster is just total doo-doo water. In that case, send me your roster in here, and I'll try to help you. But other than that, I would keep Jay Jettas. Big Money Joe says, I'm bending corners in these streets. Ew, wait, why? Get home safe, my guy. Get home safe. It says, Brazil, if Higgins plays, do I still start Gesicki over Ferguson? Yeah, I would. Gesicki will be getting more open with Higgins out there. Right now, of course, we've seen Gesicki, have some tough games because, again, it's just Jamar Chase and him. So, again, I think when Higgins gets back out there, I think Gesicki will return to getting his 8 to 5 points, but it's still pretty good because really you're just waiting, of course, for, I believe you said it was Otten to get off a bye. So really 1 week is okay. 1 week you can get 5 to 8 points and you'll still be good, I believe. So that's fine with me. But again, if you want something better, try to trade for something or get something better that you think is going to happen with the guys on the waiver wire. But I think you should be fine, especially if Higgins is back. He should be getting good points. Dizzle and Frizz for Riz, man. But yeah, love these guys too. Dizzle says, Vince, what do you want for Christmas? Any purchases you're scheming? Well, man, I just got basically approved to basically start either this Monday or next Monday. So I should be having some good, basically some good, what's the word? Good paychecks. So good income coming in. Let me show you. This is what I have as my setup right now. So if you guys can see in the camera, it kind of sucks. Basically, I just have my PC right here. So I'll set it up for here. Basically, this is my desk like this. My PC takes up half of it right here. And then I have like a little basket here that I help my significant other. As you can see over here, she has a small business where I help her do some packaging and stuff like that. What I want to do is I want to get another monitor because I have all my stuff smushed on one big monitor. So again, that's why you see me always clicking and moving around and going like this back and forth, because I'm trying to get every single window open so I can help answer questions as best as I can. That's pretty much my only big purchase there. Might be getting like a gaming chair because, again, this chair here, which I'm not sitting in, is just like a basic office chair. And I want to get like a gaming chair where I'm more comfortable in. So maybe something like that. But really, I'm not a big spender on myself. I spend on other people. And I like to just have fun. I like to make memories and stuff. So really not a very big materialistic guy. But also back here, I am starting another fish tank. So fish tanks can get quite expensive. So that's probably going to be like somewhere after Christmas. But those are really all the big plans of big purchases I have coming into some new money. So yeah. Big Money Joe, Brazil says, yo. It says, Big Money Joe, what up, brother? I'm cooked off the 10 milligrams. It says, enjoy the 10 mgs, my friend. Oh, Vince, that R roll was nice. You habla español? Sí, señor, yo habla español poquito, pero yo hablar, I guess, bueno. Pero yeah, I try my best with Spanish. Again, I'm still learning. I grew up in a household where Spanish wasn't spoken too much. And same thing with my grandparents. So I can speak here and there, especially for my job. I definitely can speak like a little bit more medical Spanish, especially when they ask me sort of medical things. But then again, I sometimes get lost because this brain right here functions on English first and Spanish second. So my significant other, her first language was Spanish, so she teaches me as I go along, as well as her parents because they speak predominantly Spanish. Dizzle says, I'm in Pillow World, Joe, and life is good. Big Money Joe says, y'all, what's up, everyone else in the chat? We hanging. Yeah, he says we hanging. But yeah. So here we go. We're getting to our doodle here. Hopefully you're still here. I know I'm 3 minutes late on this comment. He says, I have Jaden, Bijan, JT, JJ, Wilson, Neighbors, Kelsey, Pickens, and D-Hop. I would keep it, man, honestly. If you really wanted to, I would say maybe sell D-Hop to get maybe a little bit more depth at the running back position. I know Bijan and JT are great, but maybe you could get somebody else to back up those running backs just in case. Again, I'm not hoping for any injuries here. We never do on this channel. But I would probably do that, especially since you have Pickens out there. But then again, I know this is just your starting lineup in the flex positions, so I don't know what you have in the bench. But yeah, that's probably the only thing I would do. But yeah, Not too bad. So high on Jamar in my other leagues. It's a start 6. My team is Purdy, JT, Dobbins, Jamar, Puka, DK, McBride, Deontay, Myers, Allen. I wouldn't. Jamar Chase is probably the best you can get at wide receiver at this point in time. And having Puka and DK is not bad behind them. If anything, if you want to get a better wide receiver package, Puka and DK, maybe go after like a Jay Jettas type of situation. Maybe go after who else could you possibly get? If you're looking for a wide receiver, at least at this point, I think maybe you could go. I mean, you already have Neighbors, so it's kind of hard. I wouldn't mind you going for like an AJ Brown at this point in time. I know he's had a bad couple of weeks, but I think he will rebound as his team is doing a lot better. But really, man, I mean, your squad is good. I like Jamar, Puka, and DK there, so I'm not mad at it. But even if you want to just package any other guys like Myers, Allen, if you really don't feel like you need him because you got Purdy, or package Purdy and Myers, or Myers and Deontay, and go after a guy that's elite, something like that. But you can do a lot. That's a great roster to have. So you drafted very well. Good job. It says Pillow World sounds great. I'm in motion. Need a nap. I'm whooped. It's been up since 5 a.m. Good job, Big Money. I've been up since about like 7. So I didn't beat you there. But I do feel pretty happy based on that job offer that I just got. So Big Money just says beanbag chairs are overrated. Oh, dude, imagine I've seen some big beanbags that are like humongous. Dude, that'd be honestly pretty awesome. My significant other would hate it though, because this is kind of a smaller room. You can't see it, but we have like a lot of packages down here somewhere. I don't think I can actually show you. I'll try to, but as you can see, we got a bunch of packages and boxes down there. That's basically all her product that she sells, as well as some stuff that she buys to sell at her markets and stuff. So I support her as best as I can. I have this little section as well as my little section back here, and then she has the rest of it. So, yeah, that's what we do, man. But waiting to save up some money with this new job that I just got. Getting paid quite a bit. $20,000 above the market price for my profession as a starting occupational therapist. So very grateful, very honored. All glory to God, everything like that. So yeah, that's going to be the next option. Save up money, buy a house, and get a better setup so I can have my own room for the football podcast, and she can have her own room for her business stuff. So that's the dream right there. That's what we're saving up to. So we're sacrificing now, so that way we can live and build great later on. Dizzle says, "Congrats on the job, Vince." Thank you, my fine sir. Just trying to make some good decisions for myself and my significant other, and of course my family too, for long term. So Arturo Flores says, "What can I package for Jamar?" I mean, if you are dead set on trying to get Jamar, you're gonna have to package quite a bit, to be honest. Nobody's gonna let Jamar go for next to nothing. So I think if you're going to get Jamar, you're going to have to let go of Jay Jettas, and you're probably going to have to let go of either Kelsey or Pickens in addition. Again, I don't know. Maybe this guy is super greedy, and he's like, I want your number 1 wide receiver and your number 1 running back for Jamar Chase. So again, it's going to be kind of tricky. It just depends on how reasonable, I guess, that guy is. So fiddle around with it. You'll see what you can do. But yeah, it's going to be pretty hard. But all right, I've finally gotten through all the comments. I appreciate you guys for keeping me going as long as you did. But yeah, very appreciative. And that's about it, guys. I mean, if you have any last second comments, I will be on for maybe about 5 more minutes. Yeah, so let me know. Arturo says, "And would you send Jay Jettas or keep it?" In my opinion, I would try to get Jamar Chase, but I really wouldn't want to get rid of more than Jay Jettas and maybe like Pickens or D-Hop. If I have to give up any more, if he wants anybody better, like maybe like Jonathan Taylor and Jay Jettas, I wouldn't do that. That's giving it way too much. Even if he said, I want Jay Jettas and Kelsey, I wouldn't do that because that's your number one guy at wide receiver at this point in time and your number one guy at tight end. You wouldn't want to give up two. It's basically they put it at this point. Do you want to give up 2 first rounders just to get 1 first rounder? Or do you want to give up a first rounder and a maybe like 4th or 5th rounder to move up to the better first rounder? So think of it in that aspect. Of course, it is your team, so you can do what you please. But I would only want to give up a first round for a first round, or a first round and a 5th or 6th round for a better first rounder. So that's the way I look at it as a fantasy purposes. Kid Dizzle says, would AJ Brown and Devo get you Chase? I think it would, possibly. You can try it. Again, it just depends on how reasonable the guy is. Again, if this is like Kyrie or something you're talking about, Kyrie's not going to do that. So Dizzle says, I'm out, going to float in Pillow World. Have fun, my guy. Be safe. Make good decisions. And, of course, always come back to the channel and let us know. So love you, man. And super grateful for you being here. Mr. Magic also says, Dobbins and Myers for Jacobs. Josh Jacobs. I don't know if I really, really like it because, again, Josh Jacobs could get the same amount of points as what's his name? Sorry, J.K. Dobbins. So I don't know if I'm okay with that. Again, if you are, that's totally fine with me. But I mean, as of right now, I really don't like the production that Josh Jacobs is getting for me to want to get rid of Dobbins and Myers. Excuse me. But if you really want to upgrade there and you don't really care about Myers, as you probably don't in your roster, I don't think it's bad. It is most likely an upgrade, as Dobbins is, let me see what he's ranked in. Let me see. He's ranked 15th at the running back position. He has been doing decently well this past 5 weeks. I don't know if I would want to do that, to be honest. Josh Jacobs also does have a tough matchup against running backs. In Chicago, San Francisco, Miami, Detroit, all 4 of those teams should be kind of in orange or red for him. Possibly maybe Miami is in green or light green. But yeah, so again, it's totally up to you. If you want to move that, it's totally fine with me. But again, it's up to you. This is probably going to be your last trade. So you definitely want to get something good. So I think it's all right. I think it definitely moves in your favor as of Needle, who won the trade. Frizzell says, screw it. He says, I'm finally dropping Koo. I'm going to kick him off my team, and I won't miss, unlike him. Hey, man, it was a really bad game for him. I was super appreciative about that because I literally won by 1.2 points, and I just looked back on it, and Koo, that amazing man, missed 3 field goals, and he only had 2 points. I had what's his name, Austin Siebert from the Washington Commanders, pretty much the number 1 kicker in the league, in my opinion, as of like how many points he puts up from week to week. And he was out. So I decided to keep him, not drop him for another kicker because I didn't want to lose him. And my guy had Young Ho Koo, and he missed 3 field goals, only ended up with 2 points after making a field goal and 2 extra points. So again, 1 for 4 in field goals has that minus points for him. So I loved it so much. I was, and again, I only won by 1.4. So again, 1 more of those field goals that went in would have killed me, and I would not have won the game. So I would have been very mad. So yeah, drop him. Drop that guy. Mr. Magic says Jamar for AJ and Gibbs. I think I would like it. Again, it just depends. Gibbs is great, but again, you just got to remember that he is splitting carries. So you have to be okay with some games getting like 12 points from him. Same thing with AJ Brown. Again, everybody on the team is getting a lot better, a lot healthier. So again, you have to be okay with having just like some games 15 points from him. So if you combine those two on those low weeks, that's only 27 points. Jamar Chase could get you that by himself. So again, always keep that into perspective. On their worst games, how would they stack up against Jamar Chase? So that's what you want to do. So again, if you're going to trade with Jamar Chase, I would really want you to go after guys like Jay Jettas, other guys of that caliber, because again, you're trading the number one wide receiver away. You really want to get something extraordinary back. I wouldn't even say Malik Neighbors straight up. I wouldn't do that. Or Amon-Ra St. Brown straight up. I probably would not do that. Again, that one maybe with another guy added in there. But really nobody compares to Jamar Chase at this point in time. He is the undisputed wide receiver one after that 55-point bomb of a game that he had. But again, he's done something of that caliber. I mean, 20 points in 4 games already. And again, on like 3 other games, he was just right there, maybe a catch or 2 away from getting 20 points. So in my opinion, Jamar Chase is great. I would want to keep him, to be honest, unless you're going to get a super big return. You hold the cards there because you have that guy. Friso says, who's your favorite wide receiver on waivers this week to pick up? I have Leggett on bye, so the flex is open. I mean, in free agents, as of right now, it just depends on the league that you're in. Are you in a 12-man, 10-man? It's up to you. So again, if I'm going to get somebody off of bye weeks, it's probably going to be a guy like Rashad Bateman. Again, he is that boomer bust type of guy. If not him, I'm going after a guy like maybe Alec Pierce. That's probably about it on the guys that I actually really like. You could also go after John Mechie. Again, he had a great game this past week. Maybe he capitalizes on it again against the other Texas team and the Dallas Cowboys. He says, I'm in a 14-man league. So maybe John Mechie's there. He's only owned in 3% of leagues, so he might be there for you at that point in time. Really, other than that, I mean, it's slim pickings. I know we had this conversation last week, and I think you actually got Leggett last week. I don't really remember, but you sent something right now. So let me see. Alec Pierce is there. Gabe Davis. I really don't like Gabe Davis, to be honest. John Mechie is there. I think it's either going to be Alec Pierce for me or John Mechie. Those are the big boomer bust guys. So if you want some guys like that, those are the guys to go with. If not, I really don't trust any of those other guys, Keyshawn Boot or Boutier, Elijah Moore, Gabe Davis. I'm so biased against Gabe Davis. Deontavian Wicks may have a great game, but he also may not against Chicago. I don't really know if I trust in Joshua Palmer or Trey Tucker anymore. They haven't really been up to par as of lately. So I think it's going to be having to be Alec Pierce or Mechie if you want to take the chance on him. Maybe he has a horrible game after this. Maybe he doesn't. But yeah, so alrighty, guys. Hopefully that is all the questions that you have. I'm going to sign out here. Got to go get some stuff ready and help the significant other with her orders over here. So again, she's waiting for me to do that. But I'll answer this last one, and this is my last one. If not, go ahead and put it down in the Discord, and I'll answer it as quickly as possible when I get the chance. Last week, I had CD and Tillman for Chase get vetoed for being unfair. Am I right for crashing out? Jeez, if you sent CD and Tillman to get Jamar Chase, that is a steal. So yeah, I can understand why you guys are saying that is not fair. Yeah, Tillman is great. I really like Tillman. He's stepped up a lot. He is probably a guy that's going to be talked about next year and possibly go maybe higher than he probably should in next year's draft. But then again, he may not. So Tillman could crash and fall, but Tillman could also be the best waiver wire pickup of the year, going into the playoffs at least. CD is going to drop down, so I understand why they're saying that this is unfair. But right now, CD is ranked pretty high. I think he's the number 5 wide receiver, number 4 wide receiver, something like that in the sleeper. So it looks on paper as of wide receiver rankings good. But again, we all know that he's going to crash and fall with what's his name, Cooper Rush or Trey Lance. So yeah, that's what I'm pretty sure they're talking about there. But all right, guys, hopefully that's all the questions there. I am going to be signing out here. Thank you guys for coming in and helping me with the comments and everything. I really appreciate it. And of course, as we always say here, guys, keep on grinding.